What up, watch peeps? I'm not going to do a brief background on the history of Tudor. I've done that before in my Black Bay 41 video. Go check that out if you're interested. I will say that I'm a big fan of Tudor because, as I've mentioned before, the Snowflake sub, specifically the blue one, is probably my favorite watch of all time. And I think Tudor offers more cachet for the money than any other brand, in my opinion. They have models with real heritage. The name is always tossed around in association with Rolex. I know, not the same thing, but still a really cool brand. So let's take a look at one of my favorite models, one of my personal favorite watches, the Tudor Ranger. Let's get to it. I'm Pete, and we are Chillin' with Watches. Alright, first things first. Oh yeah, the Seiko SPB 149. This is the limited edition version of this watch. Just got this in. Man, it is so good. Look for a review on that coming up soon. But for now, we have the Tudor Ranger. And, I don't have it in the box because I want this to be like an unboxing, but I think seeing the packaging and the presentation is part of the review. There are people out there who like to see how these things come. And Tudors will typically come in these black piano boxes, kind of like a piano case. They're very nice, actually. Have a little snap button closure with a pocket in the back for your papers, warranty cards. Slot in here with the extra straps. Now, this is not the strap this watch came on. This one came on the bund. I know I have a lot of bund fans in my audience. I'm not putting it back on here because it's kind of a pain, but this is a really nice strap, real nice leather, and the clasp is fantastic, like all things Tudor. Let's see if I can show you. They use those ceramic ball bearings. You can see one here, and then on the inside. And it just gives you this smooth, creamy clicks that you don't get anywhere else. Really cool. But a Tudor Ranger. So I have mine on this MN strap. This one's just from Seatbelt Natos. I think this watch kills on straps. I'm not a huge leather watch strap kind of guy. I don't really wear Natos, but I do like elastic straps a lot. I'm mostly a bracelet guy, but this is a strap watch, so I go for the elastics. And I think with this one, with the pop of red and the second hand, just all comes together very nicely. The dial, you guys heard me say it before, these Explorer type dials, I don't know if that's an unfair comparison, but the 369 dials, 12-2, are my favorites. I just really like those big numbers at the cardinal points. There's just something attractive about it to me. I like the handset on this watch. Obviously, the Snowflake handset is probably my favorite handset, but I think this handset, if you're not going to have those, is a close second in recognizability. People, they call them Ranger hands, right? So you know where they come from. I think they're very cool hands. I think they're really cool for a field watch like this. They're very fitting. They have almost like that real utilitarian military type look and feel to them. The red second hand, awesome. And I love these older heritage models because they have the rose. And I just think that's a cool throwback. Just like those, if you can get the ETA versions of the Black Bay 41s, I think those are the coolest. That's what I would try and get. The smiley text dial is also one of my favorites. I just think that's a real Tudor-esque thing to see on the dial. I enjoy it. Now, I had this watch and the Black Bay 41 at the same time, and I'll tell you, I ended up keeping this one over top of the 41 because I liked how it wore better. It's a little smoother in its shape. It's not quite as slabby or blocky as the 41, and the 41 is very straight from lug to case side. This has like nice, more smooth curves that make it not wear quite so big and chunky. And I just really like the way it wore better. I like the box crystal on this one. It's got polished case sides, lug holes, drilled lugs, as it were. Now, it is a brushed bezel, which I prefer. I just recently picked up one of those new Dress KXs, and I intentionally went for the NATO version over the bracelet version, because the NATO versions have a brushed bezel. I do not like the polished bezel, and that was another thing of why I kept this one over the Black Bay 41. The 41 had this polished bezel that I didn't like as much as the. I like this more tooly look of more brushing. It's got a very cool signed crown, again with the Tudor rose. And I just think if you're going to do a heritage model, those kind of throwback logos are the way to go. I think it's really neat. It does sit, there is turn down to the lugs, but it does sit rather flat. There's not much belly out of the back. You don't usually see that when you're using a Swiss movement. Must be a double domed box sapphire crystal, because you can see there's really not much distortion there, except at the very edges. The dial itself is very matte, and I am a matte dial guy. I apologize if there's fingerprints on here. Now there's dust instead of fingerprints. But I really like a matte dial. I guess I just like these more brutish watches as opposed to the elegant type watches. It's not a giant crown, but because there's no crown guards and the way that thick crown tube and the way it sits off of the case, it's still super easy to use. It does not have that color ring in it like you find on Black Bay models, but you can see it's a nice thick crown tube. Kind of see the gaskets in there. No problems using it, catching, releasing, plenty of threads on it. And this is another thing I've recently noticed about crowns, is that some of the better ones, besides the knurling or the coin edge, you can see it almost has like a bead blast finish. And I think that drier texture contributes to making a more easily usable crown. Let's see if we can get the strap off, take a look at the case back. Alright, as you can see, it has that kind of old school, just Tudor, Geneva, Suisse, with the Shield logo on a very simple Rolex style case back. Again, almost entirely brushed out this watch, which is something I like. But I love the lines. It's very thin lugs, and I think that's a result of the curves that they've added to the case side here, which to me make it much more wearable. Now it is almost all dial, and it's a lot of blank spaces in the dial, which may contribute to it wearing slightly larger, but on wrist, as you'll see, I think it wears just fine. I want to have it here so you can get an idea of what it will look like on the bun strap. It's almost pretty cool. I kind of wish I could stand having this giant pad of leather against my arm. That would kind of drive me nuts, but it looks kind of cool. All right, let's start on the Timegrapher and see how it's running. So you can see, like every Tudor I've ever owned, it's a freaking metronome. They all run great. Fantastic amplitude, almost no beat error, plus 2 or 3 seconds a day. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. Taking a look at the specs, the case comes in at 40.8 millimeters when I measured it, 48 millimeters lug to lug, 12.1 millimeters thick with 22 millimeter lugs. Some of the other specs, it has 150 meters of water resistance, a box sapphire crystal, and it runs on the ETA 2824 movement. And a new thing that all credit goes to Fratello and Mr. Nuds for this. He's come up with what is called the visual impact something. But basically, he has this really complex formula, and I'll put a link to it in the description. But it basically calculates what the watch wears like. You enter in the case size, the thickness, and the bezel width, and some things about the dial, what kind of things are on the dial to make it look busy or plain. And he calculates what it wears like. So when I run this one through the calculator, it wears like a 40.48 millimeter watch. And so I guess it wears slightly smaller than its true size. I guess that's about right. I don't feel like it wears like a 41. And so on this MN strap, it came in weighing 88 grams. Here's how it wears on my 7¼ inch wrist. And as you can see, there's absolutely no overhang. So I think maybe that visual impact is correct. It wears a little smaller for its size. It's thin, it's very wearable. Great looking watch. Let's take a look at it side by side some other watches. Here it is next to one of my recent new favorites, the Numark 52. Now the Numark 52 is a 40mm case, so it's 1mm smaller. And I think it shows that there. Has a slightly thicker bezel and it's that asymmetrical case. Now the Numark actually comes up wearing bigger than its 40mm show, and I thought these wore pretty similarly. Here it is next to my Notice Sector. This would be the field case, 38mm. I really need more watches in this style to compare this to. But I think it wears larger than this watch, but it might be slightly thinner. And lastly, the SKX. I don't know why you would ever compare a field watch to a dive watch, but just for a size comparison, everybody knows what an SKX looks and feels like. This gives you some kind of indication how this would compare. All right, let's take a look at the Lume.
Keep the Lume.
Now, I don't know what kind of Lume Tudor uses exactly. I'm assuming it's some variant of Swiss Superluminova, or I don't know if this would be old radium or C3, because it does have a creamy color to it, but it's great Lume, whatever it is. It's very bright, very long lasting. No problems at all telling the time with this one in the dark. So there it is, guys, the Tudor Ranger, one of my favorite watches in my collection right now. One of the few that's got, now let's call it temporary keeper status, because is anything really safe? Anyway, yeah, I should wear this watch more often. It's really cool. Hey, don't forget, for the 1,000 sub giveaway is coming up. We have these two Vostoks. If you're interested in that, please go ahead and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. But before I let you go, sneaker check. Just wearing my Jordan 3s again today. All right, that's it. I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.